We have to savour each one of the 11 games in the chessgames.com database between Magnus Carlsen, the king of chess, as coined in Hans Niemann's lawsuit recently, and Hans Niemann himself, the prince of chess, rising, still not as good as Alireza Firouzja, by the way. So this one's rewinding to March 2020. It's the Charity Cup, another one of these meltwater events. It's online, it's rapid play. Magnus has white, it's a mini match here. Let's see what happened. So e4 from Magnus, e5, knight f3, knight c6, the Spanish game, or Roy Lopez after bishop b5, and a6 now from Hans. So standard stuff. Now if white takes the knight, trying to snap a pawn, queen d4 is the response. You hit both of these, after the knight drops you win your pawn back. So bishop a4, very standard. Now knight f6 develops, castles, and now here we had knight takes on e4, the open Spanish. Bishop e7 is much more common. This one actually immediately wins the pawn, and it looks like you want to go rook e1, which you can play. That looks the most natural move, but the reason most white players don't do this is knight to c5, and you're picking up this bishop by force. So takes is the move, captures, yes you win the pawn, but bishop e7 blocks the e-file, prepares the castle, and black's doing absolutely fine. This is the main line. So this is why the white players don't start with rook e1, they go pawn d4 here. Now we had b5. You don't want to be taking this pawn, by the way, with the pawn or the knight. You're just ripping open the e-file. That really is too dangerous when you still haven't castled. So b5 kicks the bishop. Now we had d5, cements the knight. This is all the main line. Whoops, just click the keyboard. And white takes, all still main line. Wins back the pawn here, gains some space as well, as we can see. So black now starts with bishop to e6, defends this pawn, which is now recently attacked by two pieces since white took on e5. Now c3 played, stops any d4 stuff in the future. That's quite critical. And now bishop c5 from black. Aggressive square, more aggressive than e7, starts to look down towards the king. So knight beats d2 from Magnus, the classic developing move. Sometimes white starts with queen d3, then moves the knight, different subtleties here. Castles from black, and now bishop c2 pressures this knight, puts a question because you're about to win a pawn. So what does black do? And this is where the mainline theory here is very interesting, because moves like bishop f5 give white quite a decent advantage actually. So the main way to play, as Hans did, is takes on f2. Now it looks very amateur to do this, to give the two minor pieces for rook and pawn. We're taught early days not to do this usually, the two minors will always win out. So what's black's idea? Well, pawn to f6 is the follow-up, and if you take here, then the queen recaptures, and there's this massive initiative. You're helping black open the f-file very quickly, activate the queen. I mean, there are top players who have played this way and, you know, had draws and things, but then there are top players that have lost. There's a game here of Nigel Short going down to Arthur Yusupov back in 1989, so it's dangerous. So what we see instead from Magnus is king g1. He comes off the f-file. Black now takes, and this is key to the whole variation. So you've now set up this big center. This is part of the compensation, plus white has this big traffic jam on the queen side. It's hard to develop the pieces. So now we had knight f1, starting that development process, opens the bishop. Queen d6 played, excellent multi-purpose move. You protect two loose pieces in one go, also connects the rooks, and you start to look here, prepare e4, look at the king. Very nice centralizing move. Bishop g5 from Magnus. Now pawn e4. Yes, it kicks the knight into this d4 square, so you've weakened a square, you've given white something, but you've gained something in reply. Now you have access to e5 for your knight, and c5 could be coming at the right moment as well. So a real cat and mouse battle, always fascinating. Knight e3 now, played by Magnus. So knights are excellent blockaders of passed pawns, because even though they're stuck in front of the passed pawn, they can peer over the battlements, still influence the position. That's why they still do well when they blockade compared to bishops or rooks, etc. So Hans now goes bishop d7. He preserves that bishop, and he now prepares to go pawn c5 if he can arrange it with the right timing. But this is where Magnus outfoxes him. So Magnus starts with bishop to h4. He's preparing bishop g3 stuff. That's a bit uncomfortable. And now Hans should start with pawn to c5. But it's very, very complicated. Now, this is a good move to start with here because it prevents Magnus from dropping this knight into f5, which we see in the game. You can't do that here because black captures, knight captures, rook captures, and you're thinking, well, yeah, duh, right? You know, you can take that with two pieces. But the key thing at the end of this variation is the queen still holds this d5 pawn. So there's no queen takes with check, now winning the loose rook in the corner since this one came up and undefended it. That's key about this whole variation. So after c5, something like knight b3 looks fairly mainline, but then how is black defending this pawn? It's very uncomfortable actually, because if you go bishop e6, let me turn on my engine here. Yeah, so this is the move. Bishop takes on e4, using this pin against the queen. If instead you go bishop c6, well now bishop g3 is strong. The reason this is stronger this time and not bishop takes on e4 is because queen h6 is coming, attacking this knight with tempo, but you couldn't do that when the bishop was on e6. Like I said, it's complicated. So there's a lot going on really. You have to try and defend this pawn some way with black, plus this one could get loose. So it makes a lot of sense why Hans didn't go c5. It does kind of weaken and loosen your centre potentially, but it was the best move. So no c5 played. He goes queen to h6. Very natural looking move. You hit two pieces in one go. And if white goes bishop to f2, then black's really getting the attack they're dreaming of. So you can go rook a to e8, bring that final piece into the attack, and you know it's already setting up lots of traps. So if you try and win that unprotected pawn, for example, then black crashes through. King recaptures, and there's multiple good moves. You can start with knight to g4 check, but queen takes here is good, and there's just this huge attack coming with the knight coming to g4. You've got this dangerous pawn. The rook could join the party at the right moment, etc. So this is what Hans was hoping for, something like bishop to f2. But Magnus, obviously, being the wily old fox he is, he goes knight to f5. He countershots with a brilliant tactical move. And this is where the tactics come in, because after knight recaptures, this was played in the game. Now if you take with the rook, this is the problem I was highlighting earlier. You're now losing this rook here. This is just much, much better for white, completely winning. And if instead of taking the knight, so the queen's attacked, so we see a move from Hans with this knight in the game, but if you try and move the queen, like let's say you come to e6, defend this pawn, now you are threatening to take the knight, well again the tactics are just all working in Magnus's favour. You can take on d5 even, check, win back the queen. And again, white's for choice. This pawn's going to drop. It's just a winning endgame. So nice tactical awareness from Magnus. So what did Hans do here? He went for this knight f3 check, a kind of counter shot, tricky move. Really nice try. And now Magnus takes with the queen. If you take with the pawn, then we're taking here with the rook. And now you defend this one. And the key thing about this variation is you're starting to open some lines towards the king that could be counter chances. So Magnus, he takes with the queen. Excellent move. And now if the pawn captures, we take here, we check, this one, and it's a winning endgame for white basically, using these two bishops. They're just way too powerful, raking across this open board. So after queen takes on f3, Hans goes here with check. The king moves away. The king didn't move away. The queen blocks. That's the one that was played. You also could have gone bishop f2 there. Different winning moves. And now you just have to get those queens off because you have to recapture this piece here. So the piece was recaptured. Now we had takes here. Pawn recaptures. And again, this endgame is just hopeless now due to the two bishops. But it's nice how Magnus converts it. So the pawn's attacked. Rook defends. Rook d1 hits this one, and the bishop's coming to attack it again. So the king comes, bishop here, king comes, defends it, but rook d4, beautiful, just waiting move, and what do you do as black? So if you try and say like go rook g5, just waiting on the position so that white can't take here, well then we take with check. This is the problem. The pawn is now pinned actually because of where the king is, and if you come bishop rook e5, sorry, bishop g3, and then you're skewering these ones. So there's just no good move here. If you come to here, again, we've got the skewer, so there's nothing black can do. So ground was given, the pawn was won, and now everything just collapses. So Hans chucks a pawn here, as we'll see. I mean, this one's about to drop. What do? So b4 is quite thematic. You give a pawn, but you open a file for your rook. You know, you often want to do that with rooks, open files. Same as you want to open the position for bishops. So now we had takes here, check, king goes, check. You win this one, but it's just too little too late. We had bishop takes on e4, and now king e6 was played, activating that king, what to do. Now bishop a5. Oh, by the way, if you take this pawn, then there was this check picking up the rook here, so that was the problem. That's why the king came to e6. But these were the final moves. Bishop a5, defended the pawn, and Hans just threw in the towel. I mean, if you take this one, then we can take here. We're coming behind to skewer. Eventually, we'll win another pawn here, or this one too, and one of these pawns will queen, and then the game will be over. So beautiful crush by Carlsen. If you want to see ground zero, where this whole chess cheating thing began in the Sinkfield Cup, then check out the video on screen. Thanks for watching. See you soon.